Okay, yeah. Let's assume that. I know he was feeling under the weather, so it's just going to be us. But let's go ahead and begin. So, welcome everybody to this week's community call. For those that don't know me, I'm Ken. I'm one of the rocket scientists here, and I get to host the community calls here. And I'm joined today with Darren. Darren, good to talk to you.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm actually excited for this one because not only do we have the biweekly to cover some stuff, but we get to talk a little bit about a lot of the activities that are going on. And I've had a little chance of a preview on this because the GMC gets an opportunity every couple of weeks to do a touch base with the team to make certain that the GMC's activities are kind of aligned with the team members. So I got a little bit of preview of some of the stuff you're going to cover today, and I think it's going to be really great for the community to hear. So I'm looking forward to it. Well, let's start with the biweekly update here, and it always starts off on the section here a little bit about just some stats about the rETH supply. Slight decline over the last 2 weeks of down 0.2%. The pending and active mini pool count kind of declined significantly more at about -2% over the last 2 weeks. And the node operator count, as folks remind me each time, only goes up. It went up just slightly up about 0.2%, which means it's about holding steady on there for it. Um, but the next section is talk about the smart node. And I guess we're nearing kind of the testing completion of V2 and perhaps a release of V2 on the horizon. Darren, you want to tell us a little bit about where we are with the smart node release and when does V1 retire and when does V2 come out?
Yeah, cool. So the last like week and a half or so, probably 2 weeks actually, we've been testing beta 3, and kind of going through like a full test kind of suite on it. So that's looking. Well, we discovered a few issues with beta 3, but recently we've produced beta 4, which corrects all those issues, and it's looking solid. So I've gone through and kind of retested the areas that were not working before, and so that's looking really solid. So we're very confident in beta 4. Beta 4 is going to be the last beta. I think there's still one outstanding issue with that we're just checking into. It may or may not be an issue, but there was some inconsistencies with tree gen, so we want to make sure obviously that is kind of resolved, or at least figured out whether it's an issue or not. So we're just looking at that also, but that's basically it. There's not much more left to do on beta 2, so we're very confident on beta 2 now. So once we've just tidied up those last bits, we can then figure out how we communicate the kind of like the changeover between V1 and V2. Essentially, it'll be a release, but we'll probably do a protocol announcement as well to say, this is the next major release and that sort of thing. But yeah, so that'll be really good. Yeah, it's been a long time coming, but it's good to be out there. Just a kind of like a recap, really. But V2 is a ground up kind of like rebuild of the smart node. It has a lot of benefits over V1 particularly in terms of performance, but also with integration and just general kind of maintainability going forward. So it's an awesome upgrade, but it has kind of like been kind of almost a ground up sort of thing. So that's why it's kind of taken quite a while to do. But yeah, no, it's in a really good place now, and we can now kind of swap over so that we're not maintaining two builds, which we've been doing at the moment. So it's really good.
And then I know you're going to hate this question, but when do you
Hmm.
think that will happen here?
So we've got. So I can't really say because of this issue with TreeGen. It has the propensity, either we might solve that like today, or it might take a few days to kind of like solve. I would hope that we could do it within the next like week or two, or at least get a final build out in the next week or two. It just depends on that particular bug. It's a bit of a pernicious kind of like bug, so it's a tricky one to track down. So Patches and Fornax are working on it at the moment, and Thomas is kind of like tidying up the other bits and pieces. So I would expect within the next couple of weeks.
So ideally V2 before DevCon.
Yes, yeah, definitely before DEF CON.
Okay, excellent. Something really good that the community can look forward to. Let's
Yeah.
continue on then to the next section, the R&D section. It indicates that Saturn contract implementation work continues. The Houston
Yep.
hotfix has been completed here. Maybe let's talk about the hotfix first, and then you can talk a little bit about the Saturns that are coming. Tell us about that hotfix. Where are we at? Where's the audits? When does it go to testnet? Tell us everything the community needs to know about the hotfix.
Yeah, cool, awesome. So hotfix, the audits are now complete. We should be able to make those reports public very soon. I want to kind of time it, but I want to probably make those audits live next week. So we've got the audits are done. There wasn't really much that came out of it. There were kind of some very small things that came kind of like fixed up in the fix checks, which was really good. Yeah, but kind of both audits are done. There was like a partial audit by the person who raised the unified bug bounty as well, and one from Sigma Prime. We won't get a report for the set for the other one, but we'll get a report from Sigma Prime. And so all the audits are done. The governance stuff has kicked off. So obviously, I posted a sentiment poll last week for the hotfix. That's got some positive response, so we can move to raising it for a vote. So I'm going to raise that vote either over the weekend or on Monday, and so that will kind of like be open for voting from then. In terms of like so there's we've also got the contracts kind of loaded up for the hotfix. I'm also finishing off some DevNet testing for that, and we'll be pushing it to testnet next week as well for kind of like beta testing and that sort of thing. So that should be good. So yeah, everything's kind of like bubbling along in terms of that. So obviously, if the vote gets raised on Monday, then that'll be 2 weeks for the vote, and then its deployment and the ODAL kind of like delay, which will be another 7 days. So like basically 3 to 4 weeks in terms of that launching.
Okay, yeah, a lot to digest in there. And then, where in the process do you expect the new contract, the hotfix code, to go up on the Immunify bounty for those in the community that also want to bounty hunt?
So I want to try and do it as early as possible. So I think I'm going to do it on Monday. So we'll publish the audit reports and move the Immunify, or at least change it so that it's mildly tricky because with the Immunify stuff it's kind of like a code crossover. So I haven't actually fully decided when we'll open that up. I'd like to open it up as soon as possible because I think that's beneficial to have it as open as soon as possible. But I also don't want to kind of like preempt governance. So that's what I'm kind of like balancing at the moment.
Yeah, I get that. That you bring the vote up, that's going to be RPIP 63, right? That
Yeah.
comes up, and you don't want to presume some outcome of it. But the settlement poll was very strongly in favor, and so you
Yeah.
don't want it to be like a foregone conclusion. We still need to respect the vote of the community, but it does seem that kind of with I don't want to call it the urgency, but just with timing, we can parallel process here and get a couple of things without, I think, upsetting the community too much on this.
Yeah. I mean, worst case, I can like leave it a week, because after a week we'll probably have a good indication that it will pass or not, and so I could leave it a week and then do the Immunify stuff. Yeah, that's what I'm kind of thinking at the moment.
Okay. Okay. Perfect. Um, any other things about the hotfix that you want to cover?
Um, no, I think that's basically it. As I said, the governance is tracking forward, testing is moving forward, vote and that sort of stuff. So no, it's good.
Okay. Okay. Now let's turn our talk a little bit here to the Saturn contracts, and even in the
Mhm.
GMC, I got a little backwards here, and Whack was great to kind of help me out here, and I had forgotten that in Saturn, right? We originally had talked about the Saturn release, and there was a series of RPIPs with really RPIP 49 being kind of the major one of the features we wanted in Saturn. And I think you were going to break that into Saturn 1 and Saturn 2. And then,
Mhm.
later in conversations that came up here about the ETH only mini pools, that sediment um, poll had just come to conclusion. And there's another RPIP 62, that kind of introduces something called Saturn Zero, which are these lower yielding ETH only mini pools. So we kind of have three things in play right now, right? The presumptive vote for Saturn Zero, the already approved vote for Saturn One and Saturn Two, and it seems like a lot of work is being done on these things here. Can you maybe fill us in a little bit here, and take them in any order you like? Tell us about Saturn One, Saturn Zero, and Saturn Two.
Yeah. So how it's kind of playing out at the moment is we've got RPIP 62, which is the ETH only mini pool stuff that you mentioned. Um, that is in sentiment poll at the moment. It's been in sentiment poll for 2 weeks, and I think it concludes basically today. Um, I would expect that to go up to vote next week as well, um, so that the community can vote on whether that's like a direction that we want to go in. Um, the idea behind 62 is to kind of try to deliver ETH only mini pools to kind of compete with Lido CSM sooner rather than later. Obviously, Saturn 1 is going to take us a little bit of time to build. So, and with the imminent release of Lido CSM, I think there's definitely a push there to kind of like compete with them. So that's some of the rationale behind 62. Uh,
And let me ask a
there's I think
question.
there's
I
yeah, go.
think I know the answer too. In 62, it's all just protocol settings. There's no real code that's issued and deployed. It's just changing the existing settings to align with what the RPIP is, right?
There's no there's there's no real smart node code, smart contract code. Although even that statement is not completely true. So in in the RPIP to so in the RPIP 63, there are two elements that this is the hotfix actually. So in the hotfix, there are two elements that relate to RPIP 62, but don't actually turn um, ETH only mini pools on. It just makes them possible in the future if we decide to. So there's one that is being able to set the minimum RPL stake to 0, because currently you can't do that. It will actually like cause some reverts, cause revert. So we fix that as a bug fix anyway. We want to fix that as a bug fix anyway because you know we don't want that situation anyway. Um, there is one other component which is changing there's like this scrub penalty. So if you try to exploit the protocol using by depositing first and claiming like these withdrawal credentials, and then depositing through Rocket Pool, your mini pool can get scrubbed, and that there's a scrub penalty on that for a security reason, and that's to mainly make sure that the ODAL but basically can't be gas DOSed. So in a roundabout sort of way, that's needed for kind of like security. But if you set the RPL stake to 0, there's no RPL to use for the penalty, because it currently uses RPL at the moment. So one of the things that's in the hotfix is to change it to use ETH instead. So it's not a there's still a penalty there, so we're not really changing the functionality, but we are changing how that penalty is applied. And so that's actually in the hotfix, because that will go out kind of like sooner. But as I said before, that doesn't activate ETH only mini pools. It just makes them possible if we want to do that. RPIP, so that's RPIP 63. RPIP 62 only includes parameter changes and changes to tree gen. So it does have changes to code, but it's at the tree gen level, not at the smart contract level. So just to kind of have that distinction.
Yeah, no, thank you for explaining that. And then in terms of, let's say that it, it goes to, I mean, settlement poll said it needs to go to vote, right? Or I mean, it's,
Yeah.
unless there's a huge shift in the remaining time voting and settlement polling. And then it goes to vote. Let's just foreshadow a little bit. I know this is sometimes dangerous to do, but it seems if the actual vote is very similar to the settlement, it will be strongly in favor of passing. So let's assume that it does, just for the sake of conversation here. What do you think is a realistic time frame? You would have already had the hotfix coding in, so it's just really parameter changes and some work on the tree gen. Can you maybe explain a little bit about that, and when you think Saturn Zero would be a realistic launch date?
Yeah. So it depends on how long it takes to develop the tree gen changes. The tree gen changes are not necessarily complicated, but we want to make sure that they're obviously done, in a robust way, and that this given adequate testing and all of that sort of stuff. I would comfortably say by the end of the year. It may be slightly sooner, like kind of like November, but yeah, it really does depend on how that kind of like testing and the development and testing kind of goes. But that's kind of like the target at the moment, if that vote was to go through.
Okay, excellent. So that does seem like that would be a fairly quick turnaround time between PDAO approval and actual implementation of the Saturn Zero protocol upgrade.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And then at the same time, I think you guys are also working on Saturn 1 and 2. Maybe you're working on jointly, or focusing on some part. Can you share a little bit about Saturn 1 or 2?
Yeah. So well, basically we're working on Saturn 1, although there's some overlapping with Saturn 2, but we're on Saturn 1. So that's been going really well. Kane has built out a verifier for verifying beacon chain state roots, which is used in a few different places within the Saturn contracts, or the Saturn megapool contract, to do things like withdrawals and exiting, and also depositing, actually. So actually specifically staking. So there's few areas where that's used. He's developed that. We've worked on the megapool contract and the delegation system. We've worked on the deposit mechanism, and the queues, like the kind of the express queue and the normal queue, I guess I would say. I can't remember what it's specifically said in the RPIP. But yeah, so we've definitely gotten into the work and gotten into it. So one of the things that one of the things that we're doing in kind of like parallel to working on it is uh, we've got to go through and essentially put all of the stuff in a like a tracking system so that we can do things like milestone tracking and all of that sort of thing. So we're going through decomposition next week, breaking down those tasks and actually putting it into the tracking system so that we can track towards milestones and essentially, you know, make those public so that you guys can have some transparency on how things are moving along and how things are going. But yeah, that's what we're working on kind of next week. Basically, is putting it all into the tracking system. But we are making really good progress. The team are kind of like cranking through the code, so it's going really well.
That's great to hear. And I'm even looking in trading here, and I think the community is going to be very responsive to the milestone tracking. We very much like the Monday
Mm.
morning quarterback here, but it's really great to just be able to follow kind of in real time the progress and the success the team is having. So I think that would be really great to break it into those milestones, as you say, to decompose it into deconstruct it into those milestones, and then we can track it. What's your
Yeah,
expected kind of ETA for Saturn One? I know that one's a little farther out, but like, do you have a sense of a launch window that you'd like to see that one launched by?
I mean it is very difficult to tell at this early stage. I mean, we're targeting kind of like end of Q2, beginning of Q3, but that is only really kind of like a guesstimate at the moment. So that's why it's quite vague. But as we get a bit closer, or particularly as we get this stuff into the tracking system, we can start at least um, at least having like a target. It will still be a range because we're never going to be able to pin it down until we're a bit closer. But we will be able to timeline it a lot easier once we start getting through the work and knowing how quickly we can actually get through this work. And we can build some momentum and that sort of thing. So um, yeah, we'll know a lot more as we go. But I think the milestones are probably the key thing. If we're ticking through and we're hitting those milestones, then we'll be obviously the final milestone will be uh, where we want to land, and if we're ticking through those milestones, then we're on target. In terms of like what those milestones kind of look like at the moment, I'm thinking there'll be kind of like things like DevNet releases or testnet releases. Actually, probably not testnet releases because that's our staging environment, but DevNet releases where we might have a bit of an open DevNet a thing going on where people can play around with it. But things like, similar to what Ethereum does in terms of, so DevNet 0, for example, will include these things. DevNet 1 release will include these things. DevNet 2 release these things and all that sort of thing. That's kind of how I'm thinking of structuring out those milestones.
Yeah, very interesting. We got trading kind of real time, trying to figure out do we take the dates that Langer said and double them? Always take the deliverables that somebody in IT gives you and double them, or or do we have the right dates of what quarter we're in right now and which ones are coming? But it sounds like it's probably at best on a 6 month time horizon from today, is what you're thinking. Am I hearing you correctly, or am I doing the dates wrong?
Yeah, no, I think that's right. Yeah, 6 months.
And then Nashua also put in trading a little bit earlier back on the topic of Saturn Zero, and he pointed out some of the instructions in there in RPIT 62, which was we could, I guess, under its instructions, just make the protocol parameter changes, and then even if the reward tree calculations have to come some period of time, an award cycle or two afterwards, we could do that. So presumably, I guess then, if that's true, could we not then, really launch Saturn Zero almost within a week after the vote concludes?
Um, Potentially the only potentially it depends on I'll have to double check my kind of like timelining. It depends on a little bit. We need to do some testing first. But yeah, maybe that's true. Yeah, I'm not sure. I have to double check.
Yeah, well, thank you, Joshua, for bringing it up. But yeah, I mean that could be really good. But I think definitely something to kind of look at least to get a quick win of some points on the board, and then especially if Saturn One is really going to be 6 months out, right? It would be good to get something in quick, and then we can focus a lot more on Saturn One and how to accelerate that or how to make that launch on time. Any other things about Saturn or R&D in general?
Um, no, I think that's mainly what we are kind of like focused on. Um, yeah, Saturn one. The only other thing is when we turn on like the PDAL voting. That's probably um that's probably more like that's after the hotfix. So once we've released the hotfix, we will be able to turn on PDAL voting and eventually, and we'll schedule when we turn off um, the PDAL Guardian. So that'll come just after the hotfix as well. That's the other thing that's kind of like on the horizon.
Oh, thank you. I totally forgot about that very important topic. And I guess are there any roadblocks for that? I know earlier on we wanted to make certain enough people had enabled on-chain voting. Are we at that threshold where really it's just finding a date and doing the ceremony, or are there some roadblocks?
No, I think we've got enough in terms of the initialized vote power. I think we've implemented that kind of like auto init thing just to from a technical reason to get the initialized vote power up. But um, yeah, I think we had enough from vote power initialized, so we're good to go in terms of that. It's just we just need to have the hot fixes in because two of the items in that hotfix were kind of like a unified bug bounty things around the on-chain voting. So we need those in place before we turn it on, just to be kind of 100% covered.
And then in your kind of timeline, once the hot fix is deployed out there, what are you thinking? Like 2 weeks after the hot fix is out on mainnet, or do we think we're going to enable on-chain voting before DevCon, or help me just in timelines here?
Uh, yeah, I would imagine like maybe a week after. I got to double check my timeline as well, to be honest. But because I think a week after it may have to wait until after DevCon. It just depends on because I think we'd rather be kind of like fully here when we like turn stuff on, rather than imminently flying out to Bangkok. So it it's likely it's after DevCon, but I'll double check.
I was going to say you can YOLO it and do it on the plane Wi-Fi and deploy the contracts as you head out. Come on. Yeah. Okay. So
Yeah, I
this
prefer not to do that.
yeah. But so this could be really two good wins, 2 points on the board, relatively quick for Rocket Pool. So that'd be really good then. Anything else before we go on to governance, which actually has a lot of Saturn on it still, but anything else in R&D?
No, I think that's cool.
Mav did include in the governance section, he did include the discussions on the DAO forum, including the sediment poll on RPIP 62, which we talked about. That's the Saturn Zero. And then the other one is the sediment poll on RPIP 63, which is the Houston hotfix. This is kind of a little bit the horse before the cart, right? We probably should have created this. Instead, we kind of made the fix, and now we're now we're officially voting on the on the corrections in the fix, but getting everything kind of aligned with governance here. And Langers, either you might have said in the GMC call or here, you're hoping to get both of these out to the official vote, the snapshot voting, when?
Well, technically, I'm only really involved in 63, RPIP 63. I'll need to double check with the RPIP 62 guys. But RPIP 63, we're like RPIP 63 its sentiment poll, I think finishes actually tomorrow. So either we'll probably get it up for vote realistically Monday. So so that'll be on Monday. I haven't heard about 62, but I assume it's coming. So so I think because their sentiment poll finishes today, so I'd imagine we're going to vote on that on Monday as well. But yeah, I'll kind of hold off on confirming that.
Okay, I guess it's up to Samus and Val that have been kind of driving that about the timing. So I might throw
And
that question to
Lulu.
them. I don't know if they're listening or in the chat, but feel free to speak or come on if you have a little bit of sense as terms of the timing there. And then last in the governance section here was the IMC reports have been produced. It's always good to see the accounting of the reports of any of the management committees, the IMC, the Incentive Management Committee, or the Grants Management Committee. Always good if you're interested to see how the protocols funds are being used to take a look at the budget reports that are produced. Couple of integrations. Mav indicates that rETH is now supported by an LP optimization protocol. Tokamak XYZ had a release out. There was a number of things in media and marketing. There's a new RPL listing on an exchange. As always, Mav says do your own research that's on there. And then one of the other types of DeFis was a futures listing that was also listed in there. So take a look at both of those. Beefy announced that there was a boosted rewards on the RPL rETH pairing. So if you have either RPL or rETH and are interested in a little bit of DeFi, there could be a boosted reward opportunity for you. And then there were two recent community calls, if you haven't heard them lately. One was featuring Archive, and the other one was Contango. Those were two calls. The recordings are up on YouTube. So if you missed both of those, feel free to listen in on that. And that was kind of a short bi-weekly update there. Darren, anything that we haven't covered yet on today's call that is important for the community to know?
No, I think we covered off all the pressing stuff. That's cool. Thank you, Ken.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure here. And then it also sounds like the team, pretty much most, if not all of the team, is planning for DevCon, which is mid-November, but that's actually not too far away. I think we're less than 60 days away, correct?
Yeah, it's not far, is it? Yeah.
And I suppose you'll let us
6
know
weeks.
if there's any word about the Rocket Pool meetup during that week.
Yeah. So I'll get Mav to put something together about how we're going to get together and that sort of thing. I'm sure we'll hang out at DevCon itself, but ideally we can do some sort of social thing as well. But yeah, that'll be fun.
Okay, excellent. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure to spend a good 45 minutes with you and to learn more about it. And it sounds like there could be some really neat opportunities coming up pretty fast here with some of the easy wins from Rocket Pool. And I'm very excited to learn more about the kind of milestone waypoints with Saturn 1. I think once we clear the board with the hot fix and Saturn 0 and get kind of the easy things out of the way, then really it's just it's running that marathon to the completion of Saturn 1. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's definitely exciting. It's exciting to be to be making progress on Saturn 1 now. I think it's yeah, it's definitely exciting to move that along now.
Oh, and I did see, sorry, one last question that came in trading here from Lee. All the way back to our first topic about smart node V1 to V2. How hard is it to upgrade? What should node operators be kind of preparing for when that comes out?
I'll have to ask the guys. We'll put together like an upgrade sheet, obviously, to make sure that maybe like a Medium article to show you how to. Actually, it should probably be in the documentation as well. So what format that takes, we haven't quite decided, but there'll be basically a migration guide for it. It shouldn't be too difficult. I mean, going forward, it'd be super easy because once you're there's actually, if you're using like, then it's all built into apt and that sort of thing. But yeah, that migration will kind of like lay out for you guys, so that everything's kind of like tested and easy.
If a regular version 1 upgrade from just 1.10 to 1.11, if that's a 3 on a 1 to 10 scale, what do you think version 1 to version 2 is going to be? Is that greater than 3? What number of difficulty would that be if the V1 upgrade is just 3?
I don't think it's that difficult, but I'll get with the guys.
So maybe like a 4.
maybe I don't know. I haven't gone through a process yet. I've been testing a new thing, so I need to actually go through the migration.
All right. Well, I've got complete confidence that no matter what score it is, there'll be excellent documentation. That's always
But
expected at Rocket Pool, and I think
I'll
yeah,
probably
yeah. And I guess Lee
I'll be
knows.
doing I'll be doing my nodes before I release it to everyone else. So if I can do it, everyone else can do it.
Perfect. All right, Langers. Well, again, it's been a pleasure, and we'll chat next time. And for everyone else in the community here, thank you for joining us, and feel free to hang out here in the Chit Chat channel afterwards if you like.
Cheers, gang.
Bye.